With Nicole, Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about Conversations with Nicole.
Greetings, beautiful people. How y'all doing? Hope you're well. I am Nicole Everett, the host of Conversations with Nicole, where we are connecting the community through conversations. And it is what I call Mindset Monday. Mindset Monday. What's your mindset? So we are seeking to normalize the conversation around mental health and wellness, and particularly amongst Black and Brown communities. And we have a very special guest here with us tonight. But before I introduce our special guest, I want to hear from you. So tell me in the comments where you are tuning in from. I see some of you already chiming in already. So I will go ahead and give a shout out to Pamela Jones Smith. Happy Monday. Thanks for tuning in right here in Tally. And hey there, Gina Wilson. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. So we are live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on the Greater Works Network on Roku TV and on the Greater Works Network app. So live stream. So if you don't have a Roku TV, you still can check us out on the Greater Works Network app. Download the app and tune in live stream. All right. So folks are chiming in. I appreciate it. Hey, Ozzy. He said, let's go Bam. I forgot the game was on tonight. So forgive me, brethren and other sports fans. Prioritize. Listen, check us out during the commercials, maybe. Ozzy's in Virginia Beach. Gina's in Baltimore. Okay, I didn't know you relocated, but thanks for being here. Hey, Kalinda. Kalinda's right here in the Tallahassee area. We got Sean, my classmate, homeboy. He's in North Carolina. Dr. Cortina's here. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Yes. We got Nicole from Indiana. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. And I think I saw Latanya, West Georgia. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And Lynette, thank you so much. So, tonight's topic is around suicide. We're talking suicide awareness and prevention. And, this is kind of a heavy topic, but very much so needed. It's not Suicide Prevention Month, but the numbers as it relates to suicide is definitely going up in the African American community. And my guest is versed in this and is capable and able to talk around this topic. So let me share a little bit about Miss Keke Lee. So Keke Lee is from Gadsden County. She currently resides in Midway, Florida. She's the proud mother of two sons, CJ and DJ. She received her master's and bachelor's degree in clinical social work from Florida State University, and she's been privileged to gain extensive education, training, and experience working with children and families. She is a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Florida, and she has several volunteer hours with a number of different organizations. Her church, also member of the National Hookup of Black Women in the Gaston chapter of Tau Theta Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Miss Lee is a lover of God and people, an advocate for youth, and is devoted to empowering others to live their best lives. So join me in welcoming Miss Keke Lee.
Hi.
Welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Nicole.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So tell people who you are, not what you do, because we just talked about that, but tell them who you are.
Oh my, okay. Well, I am Keondio Lee is my government name. Most people call me Kiki. I am a woman of God. I am a lover of people. I am the proud mother of two teenage boys. I am a daughter, a sister, a friend. I'm an advocate for youth and mental health. I'm an intercessor. I'm a praiser. I'm passionate about being of service to others. And I believe in sowing kindness, seeds of kindness and love, and encouraging others just to, believe in themselves and to live their best lives. So that's me.
Awesome, awesome. I'm loving the shirt. You got be a nice
Yes,
human going
be a
on.
nice human.
And
Doesn't
behind
cost
you,
you anything.
right. And live your best life. I love it.
Live your
I love it.
best
I love
life.
it. So you are in Quincy. Well, from not Quincy, in Midway, but from Gadsden County. So I saw a few Gadsden folks. I told Kiki
Okay.
before we went live. I said we gonna call out the Gadsden folks. I wanted to see if they're
All
gonna
right.
be
Hello, my
represented tonight.
Gaston people. Thank you
So
for showing
look,
up.
Gaston
Hey,
County,
Stacy.
give us a shout out, give us a thumbs up, some hearts or something. Let us know that you out there supporting Kiki tonight.
Thank
All
you all for
right.
joining.
Yes. And I see my sister is here, so a lot of folks chiming in. Hey there, Dr. Close. Thank you for being here, and a few folks on YouTube as
Hi,
well.
sister.
Okay. Hey, sister. Thank
Sister
you. Thank you.
cousin.
Sister cousin. All right. All right. So midway stand
All
up.
right.
Look,
Midway in the
I love
house.
it. I love it. I love it. So I appreciate that. So how did you get involved in counseling? Give us a little bit of that history.
Well, okay. I'll try to make a long story short.
Okay.
Initially, uh, I planned to go to college to major in nursing. However, I had a life experience that kind of
Mm.
changed that trajectory. And so when I was 17, I gave birth to a stillborn.
Mm.
And I had a social worker in the hospital that was so helpful and so compassionate and loving. And I just kind of decided, hey, I think I can do this. I want to, try this field out as opposed to nursing. Always knew I wanted to be in a field that helped others. But after having that encounter, I began to research social work and how, I felt like that was a great fit for my personality. So I love being of support to people, and I seem to be a magnet for people
Mm.
to tell me what they're going through or need people needing advice. That since I was younger as a teenager, so it was just like I was just drawn to it. So that what kind of led me into my field of social work and
Mhm.
counseling came with it.
Okay. Very good. Well, thanks for sharing that. And you just celebrated a year of your private practice.
I did November 26th, 1 year in business,
Awesome.
my private
Awesome.
practice. Yes.
Yes. So tell us the name of your practice and kind of what your specialty is.
Okay, the name of my practice is Keke Lee Counseling and Consulting LLC, and I provide teletherapy, academic advising to young people ages 6 to 24. I also provide consultations and workshops for organizations and within the community, businesses within the community.
Okay, very good. And currently also doing some work with Gadsden County Schools, right?
Yes, I am the licensed clinical social worker for the School Climate Transformation Grant, which is a
Mhm.
partnership between the Gaston County School District and PACE.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you
everybody
all.
they're congratulating you. So
I
wonderful,
just,
wonderful, wonderful. Wonderful. Yes, Jamil is one of our big supporters, so we appreciate her. All right, so let's dive in. We were talking around this a little bit.
Hi, mommy. That's my
Oh, that's your
mommy.
mom? Oh,
Yes.
nice, 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 nice. Thank you, mom, for being here. Appreciate that. So we were
That's my
talking
sister.
around suicide. So let's
Yes,
let's
ma'am.
give us some statistics. I know you and I chatted about it in terms of what it looks like currently. Especially, I know I have been hearing that the numbers have been going up for teens, youth, and Black men. So, can you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, currently suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United
Mm,
States. Um, although it's decreasing overall, it's increasing within African Americans,
mm,
specifically boys and males. We've seen about a 30% increase since 2019. And so, suicide is the second leading cause of death for young people ages 10 to 24.
mm,
Based upon the CDC most recent statistics, 2019 says that 47,500 people die by suicide. I repeat that, 47,500 people die by suicide, which is estimated to be one person every 11 minutes.
oh,
So I'm gonna just let that sit for a minute.
hmm.
Let's take a deep breath.
Yeah, I'm having to take a
One
deep breath.
person every 11 minutes die by suicide.
Yeah. So let's talk around, I guess, awareness, right? What, what, what are some of the signs, maybe
If you
that?
don't mind, before we get
Sure.
too far in the conversation, I
Okay.
know this is a difficult topic
Mm-hmm.
and it could possibly bring up some emotions for some people. And I want to encourage our viewers to make sure you're taking care of yourself, even during this conversation. If you some feelings start to come up and emotions, please reach out to someone that's a source of support for you. I also want to provide the suicide prevention lifeline number, and that is 1-800 273 8255.
Okay. I'm gonna put.
And
Yeah, I'll
okay,
put
and
that up.
there's also a crisis text line as well. It's 74141.
74141. Okay. I will put both of
I'm
those
sorry,
up.
it's 741 741.
741 741. Got
Yeah,
it. Okay. Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay. Thank you for sharing
you're
that
welcome.
and for that care that you put up there. That no, that just shows that you know what you're doing. Look, appreciate that.
You're
All
welcome.
right, so let's talk around awareness. Like, what are some of the signs that people need to be aware of? Either somebody that you know may be considering committing suicide, or a loved one. Um, yeah.
Sure. So when we're talking about warning signs, we kind of put them in three categories. And so the first category is talk. So when you hear a loved one or someone talking about certain things, it should, cause you to be alert. And so if you hear someone talking about feeling trapped or feeling like they don't have a way out or feeling hopeless, like they have no expectations for things getting better, feeling like they have no reason to live, like all hope is lost and things will never get better, and feeling like they're being a burden to others. We see this a lot amongst our older population. Once they lose their abilities to take care of themselves, you hear that a lot. Well, I don't want to be dependent on other people to take care of me. Or if a person experience a physical illness that prevents them from caring for themselves. You hear that a lot. Them talking about, I feel like I'm a burden on people, and it's just not an easy thing. So hearing that a lot. People talking about just experiencing unbearable pain and they can't escape it, and it's just with them all the time despite what they try to do. And hearing someone say, I think I want to kill myself. And I've heard people say, well, people, just saying that to get attention. Well, if someone is saying they want to kill themselves to get attention, please give them attention. I don't think no one will just say that, just to as an attempt to get attention. So please take that very, very seriously. So those things are in the category of talk.
Okay. No, that's again definitely something that you want to be mindful of. So what are they talking about, and taking them serious, not that it's a joke.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And then, especially with kids, young people, and as parents and adults in young people's lives, letting them know the seriousness of saying, I want to kill myself or I want to commit suicide, because a lot of them, they hear it, but they don't understand, the severity of it, the depth of it. So explaining to them what it means, and it's not a joke, because you hear some kids like, oh, just kill yourself. Well, there's some things that we should not joke about. So having those conversations with our young people to let them know the seriousness of it.
Let me also bring up at this time that amongst public safety folks, that I did a ride along with an officer a couple of years ago, and I did not realize that suicide was kind of high amongst law enforcement, firefighters, those first responders. So, those, loved ones that we have working in those fields, they see a lot.
Absolutely.
And so, listen to them when they say they're down, or they, are listen to their talk and what they're talking about.
Absolutely. They experience vicarious trauma all the time. And unfortunately, there aren't enough resources for them when it comes to quality mental health. And so, yes, that's a population that has increased numbers of suicide as well.
Right. Okay. So talk.
It's okay. Our next category is behaviors. So if you start noticing any of these behaviors in yourself or your loved ones, then this is something you want to pay attention to. So increase use of alcohol or drugs, whether that's opioids, prescription drugs. Pay attention to that. Looking for a way to end their lives. You have people that actually go online to search for ways to die by suicide. And I have to be careful because I have to change my language. We're no longer saying committed suicide, right?
Okay.
We're saying die by suicide, because committed has a negative connotation, and we're trying to remove the stigma associated with it. So we're saying die by suicide now.
Okay.
So yes, there are actually websites out there that tell people, hey, if you want to die by suicide, you can do it this way, which is it's scary. If you notice people withdrawing from activities that they normally enjoy participating in, they become more isolated. That's something you want to pay attention to. Isolating from their families and their friends. And these warning signs are across the board for adults and young people. Sleeping too much or sleeping too little. Calling people to say goodbye, so they know what they're planning to do, and so they want to make sure they have everything in order, and they say goodbye to all their loved ones and the people that are close to them. And sometimes you see people giving away prized possessions, things that they held dear to them, as a way for people to remember them by. People that are constantly aggressive, you want to pay attention to that. And people that are showing signs of fatigue. Those are some behaviors that you can look for.
So with the fatigue, is that like an extreme fatigue?
Extreme fatigue, and lasting over a long period of time for 2 weeks or more.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That
Gotcha.
interrupts in your normal functioning.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you this. And you all, this is interactive. I mean, some of you are commenting, but if you have any questions, by all means, please put them in the comments. Let me ask you this. Depression. I know there is a clinical, definition, and there's certain things that you look at in terms of behavior and that sort of thing. But, you know, do you see depression turning into, people kind of sliding to that, the 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 thoughts or the talks or the behaviors that we're discussing in terms of, dying by suicide or suicidal tendencies? And I don't, I probably really murdered that question, but hopefully you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Yes,
Like, is
ma'am.
depression maybe
Absolutely.
like the step before? You
So
maybe give
I
us
was
some
a,
pointers on identifying, like, depression, and you, like you say, how long you stay there. That's what kind of prompted my question.
absolutely. That was a part of the next category.
Oh, okay.
So look at you. You know what you're talking about. Mood. So mood.
Hmm.
Depression is a mood disorder. So yes, you see that a lot in people who die by suicide or make suicidal attempts. So clinically being diagnosed, you have to experience certain symptoms for 2 weeks or more. And so yes, sadness, hopelessness, extreme fatigue, things of that nature, lack of interest and pleasure in doing things that you once enjoyed,
Hmm.
um, either insomnia, things of that nature. So, yes, depression is definitely one. Also, anxiety,
Okay.
extreme irritability. And
Hmm.
if an event of have occurred or something that calls for humiliation, public humiliation, um, agitation, being easily agitated for an extreme amount of time. And so whenever we think about any mental illness, we have to think about the window of time that they're experiencing these symptoms. So
Hmm.
anything that's lasting for more than 2 weeks and that interrupts their daily functioning. So interferes with their work, getting things done, taking care of themselves.
Hmm. So we got Solomon on here. He's got a comment that I want to address. He says the reason it tends to go unnoticed with the Army is because the Army as a whole is mission driven focused. We're told often, even in basic training, that the Army goes rolling along with or without you. So it is definitely not an institution that focuses on health and well being of its troops. Hmm.
And that's so unfortunate. We need
Mm-hmm.
to create safe spaces, right, for
Mm-hmm.
people to feel and to not feel like they have to have it all together, especially within our communities. And Solomon, thank you for sharing that, because we need to shine more light on these organizations and things of that nature.
Absolutely. Now, my sister is on and she has a question. She says, as a high school teacher, what are some things that I can pay attention to with my students?
Okay, that's a great question. So
Mhm.
similar to some of the things I've mentioned previously, as a teacher, you establish rapport with your kids, and so about a certain time, who their behaviors and how they usually respond. So if you start noticing a change in a student where they're more isolated, they're staying to themselves, they're not really responding, they're not participating in class, they don't seem interested. Pay attention to if they have peer groups that they associate with, if it's your risk of engaging in suicidal behaviors increase when for young people when they're isolated and not participating in like organizations and with their peers and being actively involved in sports and things like that. So having an ear to hear, just pay attention sometime and just being a safe space for students, and they'll tell you some things you don't want to hear. Just
Mm.
letting them know that you're there as a source of support and doing check-ins with students to kind of like check in with their moods and see how they're doing. That's a good way to gauge, what's going on with them, or having journal entries periodically where students can write about their various experiences, and sometimes you'll notice in their language and in what they're writing, they're experiencing hopelessness. They don't see any, they don't have any dreams or any aspirations. So those are a few things that you can do to help your students.
Yeah, all good points. Thank you for sharing those, Kiki. As I listen to you, talk about these things, I think it's causing me to think about how we need to listen a little bit more carefully, a little bit more critically, because that isolation piece I think is huge. The recordings that we tell ourselves over and over again that might not be positive talk, or it might be hopelessness, so checking in with the youth in particular, but anybody that's showing these signs that you have talked about, getting them to try to express themselves in terms of what they're feeling and thinking.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. And so just creating those spaces where people feel comfortable having these conversations, being non-judgmental, right? And not dismissing people's feelings. Oh, girl, get over it. A lot of times we see risk increase when people like experience breakups and
Mm.
divorce and
Mhm.
um, trauma in their lives. And so, because as humans, it's not always comfortable sitting with people when they're experiencing difficult emotions, we're quick to try to say something to comfort them or say something to end the conversation. But it's
Mhm.
important that we make space for, people to feel free to talk about what they're experiencing, whether it's a good or a bad emotion. Well, I won't say
Right.
there's a bad emotion, but
Mhm.
a difficult emotion.
Okay. So you mentioned um, breakups and divorce and things of that nature. Can would loss be kind of something that you would include in this on this list as well, or a major life change?
Absolutely. Those are the risk factors, some risk factors that would increase a person's chance
Okay.
of contemplating suicide or
Hmm.
yes,
Right.
yes, ma'am. So other things include like adverse childhood experiences,
Hmm.
being physically or sexually abused,
Hmm.
a person that's experiencing criminal or financial problems, it increases their chances. Um, like you said, the loss of a loved one and even a pet. People
Hmm.
don't think about that, but that's important to be mindful of as well. And some other risk factors are people who've had prior attempts before, their chances of dying by suicide increases. For young people, being exposed to bullying, and that's
Mm.
huge nowadays, especially with social media.
Social
So
media, yeah.
cyberbullying is a huge issue right now, and so I believe, I don't have the data yet to prove it, but I believe that is a significant factor in the increase amongst our young people.
Hmm.
Yes, perceived losses as well.
Yeah, for sure. Um, wow. Yeah, I'm just thinking, it's a lot to contend with. Um, and again, if you don't have anybody that you're kind of talking these things out with, you can, you know, play a whole scenario in your head that could lead to your demise, your detriment. And so, again, this is part of why we are doing these talks, so that you will connect with, a counselor or therapist, that, and not you in terms of viewers, y'all specific, but yes, you specific as well. But if you know somebody that needs a counselor or therapist, this is part of why we're doing this.
Absolutely. And
Um,
I think that was Lynette that
uh-huh.
shared that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that, because this pandemic has, whew, been
Yeah.
a doozy for everyone. And it's just loss after loss after
Yeah.
loss. And so, yes, it definitely causes people to grieve and
Mm-hmm.
become depressed. So please pay attention to what's going on within yourself as well as those around you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, for sure. Um, Solomon, I see your comment. Solomon is giving a shout out to the educators within the comments. Not only do you have
Yes,
to teach your children and raise our children, you have to know your students well enough to see the changes. So kudos to the educators. So
absolutely. I
mm,
commend all educators.
yes,
Thank you.
thank you for sure, for sure,
They're
for
taking
sure.
care of our babies, but
Hmm.
sometimes they fail to take care of themselves. And so
Right.
that's one thing we want to encourage our teachers to make sure they're being compassionate with themselves and getting
Hmm.
the support that they need as well.
Yes, that's my sister.
Hi, sister.
Yeah. So I got my I love me earrings on tonight. So
Yes, I love it.
love you. Love
Amen.
you. Okay. Love you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's like I said earlier, it's okay to not be okay. Um,
Mhm.
when you start noticing these things within yourself, please reach out to someone.
Mhm.
If you don't have anyone in your circle that you can trust, these numbers are available. Please, please, please reach out. Your life is so worth living. You
Yes.
matter.
Yes.
And that's the message we want to just shout out.
Indeed.
You're not alone in this,
Indeed. Indeed. Indeed.
and that help is available.
Absolutely. So let's talk around prevention. We've kind of dabbled in it some, especially with talking with someone, calling the hotline, texting the crisis text line, that sort of thing. Um, so definitely talking to a
Excuse
trusted source in a safe space, someone that will you feel like they won't judge you or belittle you or what have you. Um, But hold on, because I see a
me. Okay.
question. I want to address that before I have you talk on that. So Ozzy said during the pandemic, I've noticed a lot of short-tempered issues. How would you communicate with those individuals?
Well, outside of a clinical setting,
Mhm.
um, I would suggest if they're having a moment, allow them to have that moment
Mhm.
because you can't really get anything across if someone is enraged or they're have a short fuse in that moment or they're aggressive. So just communicating with them. I really want to help you and I really want to be of support to you. However, I'm gonna need you to, try to calm down and be in a better space, a more calm space before we can communicate. And if that's not something they're capable of doing in that moment, just giving them space and time and letting them know that, hey, when you are ready, I'm available for you.
Mhm. Good answer. So Dr. Close, who teaches at FAMU, she says it's difficult for us as college professors because we witness firsthand the challenges and traumas of our students.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've
Mhm.
had the opportunity to work as a school counselor, and it was just so sad when 2020, the pandemic hit, and some of the seniors, they were looking forward to, graduation and
Right.
prom and all of
Mhm.
these things they had planned. And it was just like, this isn't fair. We're not able
Mhm.
to, have things that we were looking forward to. And that's a loss for them. And they were grieving those experiences. And a
Yeah.
lot of college students having to revert to virtual learning. And that's not always easy.
Mhm.
And some students didn't have a home to go back to. So some of them became homeless. So many issues came from the pandemic that are not talked about, but
Mhm.
absolutely, yes.
Yes, 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 yes. No, all again, great points. Okay, so let's talk prevention. So again, talking to someone, finding a individual or a group. We again, prior to coming on, talked about groups that support groups. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. We were talking about how sometimes, and I know for young people, support groups have been proven to be more successful than individual therapy. And so having people that you feel sharing your experiences, and it's like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not in this by myself. I have a sister or a brother that can identify me, and we can bounce back, bounce off one another, sharing, how I overcame or coping strategies to just, it feels good to know you're not alone, right? We're not meant to live in isolation. And so that's another reason too why this pandemic is being so difficult for people. So having that community, that support, that encouragement to let you know, hey, you're not alone, and you can share experiences. So you don't feel isolated and like, oh, I'm just like, this is only happening to me. But you can see other people, real people, that's experienced or have experienced something similar to you.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes. Like conversations with Nicole, right?
Absolutely. We definitely
Indeed.
thank you for this platform because you're helping a lot of people.
Well, that's the hope. It really is. So, any other prevention suggestions that you have?
Well, I wanted to say this about warning signs
Hmm.
before we move forward.
Sure.
Sometimes warning signs can be so ingrained in a person's life that their loved ones and their friends don't see it as a huge warning sign, or like an alert. um, so when you hear people dying by suicide, you hear loved ones saying, I didn't see it coming. I didn't know they were experiencing these emotions, or if they were going through such a difficult time, because sometimes the warning signs have been a part of that person's life for a long time. For instance, substance use or having mood disorders. So you don't really see it as being, something that I need to be alarmed about. So I want to encourage people who have had a loved one, if they're a survivor of a suicide, um, to release themselves of that guilt, because sometimes you just miss it. But the first thing you can do if you are a loved one struggling with it is to be mindful and aware of the warning signs, and ask directly if you see these things in a person that you're close to. Ask the question, are you thinking about killing yourself? And I know that's not easy.
Well,
It may,
and so let me ask you this, because I have heard this as well, that to talk to someone about suicide is like planting the seed. Have you heard that?
that is a huge myth.
Mm-hmm.
It is a huge myth, and that's something we discuss. I am a youth mental health first aid facilitator, so
Mm-hmm.
I provide mental health first aid to educators throughout the different districts that I serve. And so that's one myth that we try to debunk, because um, we want you all to ask the person the question. It does not plant the seed. And if a person is considering it, most time they want someone to see them. They want someone to ask them. There's this one young person we use for our videos. His name was Kevin Hines, and he shared his story when it came to his struggle with suicide. And he said over and over again, he just described his day from that morning until he attempted suicide. He just wanted, he started with his dad, and he got on a community bus, and different people saw him and said things to him, but no one ever said to him that and asked him if he was okay. And he was visibly distraught, crying, and just not in a good way, but no one ever asked him. He said he just wished that someone would ask him, are you thinking about suicide? And he said, I would have told them, I would have shared everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, at just
Wow.
asking the question. It's uncomfortable. It may
Mm-hmm.
make you feel weird, but it's best to just ask the question, are you thinking about killing yourself?
I'm so glad you said that, because, we definitely want to dispel the myths around talking about suicide. So we got a couple of questions. Fran asks, are there local support groups for you? Do you know of any? Are you aware of any?
I am not knowledgeable right now of specific groups for suicide, but there are
Mhm.
some agencies that offer support groups to young people.
Mhm.
One that I recommend is CCYS, and that's Capital City Youth Services. And
Mhm.
then also Capital Regional Medical Center have a very good behavior health um, program for young people and adults that you can seek out services for group services.
Mhm. Fran, just to also address your question, I know that the Oasis Center for Women and Girls, they offer a girls sister circle, I believe is what they call it. But I'm gonna tap into those resources as well, and see what we have here in the Tallahassee area. So I will definitely keep you posted on that once I collect that. Um, Monica wanted to know, she said, professionals aren't the only ones who hear the admission that someone wants to harm themselves. Please address your thoughts on what they should do in those moments.
Okay, so yes, like if you experience anyone that's saying they want to harm themselves, first start with asking the question, and if they say yes, ask if they have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
So hear them out.
Mm, okay.
The more detailed that plan is, so if they say, okay, when I get home at 5 o'clock, I plan to use my pistol and I'm gonna blow my brains out. You want to
Mm-hmm.
take that seriously and ask the person first if they will voluntarily go to seek treatment. And if not, then you may have to call in a crisis response team or
Mm-hmm.
have them Baker acted. So if they
Okay.
have a plan, they know what they're going to do, how they're going to carry out that plan, then you want to act immediately. Don't ever leave that person alone. Um, don't ever, swear to secrecy and tell them, hey, I won't tell anybody. You can trust me. Don't make any promises, but you have to be upfront and honest with the people that's experiencing that and let them know, hey, you may be mad with me later, but you'll be here to live another day.
Mm-hmm.
So, just giving them those supports immediately right away. And if a person, they're having thoughts, but they haven't really made a plan and, they're just I would encourage them, you to be a source of support for them, but also know your limitations as well.
Mm-hmm.
Even as a confidant, as a friend, as a loved one, referring them to counseling and therapy and other things like becoming active and getting involved, doing whether it's physical activity or being involved in organizations or a church or something that gives them meaning in life.
Mm-hmm.
So having those type conversations and being a resource for them.
Okay. Very good. Lynette wants to know, shouldn't we act even if they do not have a plan?
There are certain things you can do. Well, for the most part, um, people can have suicidal ideations without
Mm-hmm.
an intent to act upon it. So that's why it's important to have the conversation. You can make a safety plan with
Okay.
that person. So just having a conversation with them about, okay, where they are and what they're thinking and their resources, coping strategies they've used previously when they found themselves in a difficult situation or experiencing these thoughts. Just having a conversation. So, what did you do that worked for you before? And so,
Mm-hmm.
having an idea of different things they can try again and maybe offering them some new suggestions. But every person that have a suicidal thought doesn't necessarily need to be Baker acted. You can ask them, well, who will you call? Who's your source of support? Who's your support system when you start feeling this way? And
Mm-hmm.
so have them to identify that, write those names and numbers down. And so they know. So if I start experiencing, thoughts of harming myself, suicidal ideations, I follow this safety plan, this step. First, I
Mm-hmm.
try things that prior coping strategies that work. If that doesn't help, then I try contacting a friend or a loved one that I've identified as my source of support, my support system. And if that does not work, you also want to make sure if a person has had previous attempts or ideations, you want to remove any lethal means from their possession. So if you're in a house with a young person, knives, guns, or just in general, not necessarily a young person, anything that can use pills, you want to remove it from their vicinity so they won't have access to it. And so if none of that helps them, then, having a conversation about seeking clinical services.
Okay. No, thank you for sharing that as well. So we got a couple of other comments. Janae chimed in. Janae White, who is the executive director of Girls to Diva, said that SG Mental Health Counseling has groups for youth starting this month, and Girls to Diva has weekly mental check-ins every Tuesday for any girl in town virtually.
That is
Thank you for
awesome.
thanks for sharing it, Janae. Let us know how folks can connect with Girls to Divas and those mental health check-ins on Tuesday. All right. Gina said, pray. She said, prayer is wonderful, but it also requires work. Don't just pray and seek professional help. God will approve.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Pray and seek professional help.
Mhm,
Amen, sister.
mhm. Yes. And then Monica said, folks need a who do I call list. Plus, not everyone knows about Baker Act.
Absolutely.
So 211 is a good source in this area. They have a hotline and they can kind of direct you. They,
Hmm.
based on what your need is, and then again the suicide hotline and the crisis text line specifically for suicide. Those are helpful. So crisis text actually is good for any mental issue. So,
Right. Hmm.
but Monica, just to kind of answer your question or respond to your comment, 211 would be a good source. And then there is a mobile response unit here in Tallahassee for both the city of Tallahassee
And Gaston.
and Gadsden.
Well, they
Okay,
are
and
all big being areas, actually. Hmm.
yeah. So there are mobile response units, which means that they have clinicians on staff to help address those issues.
And
We
if you can't remember any of those numbers, just call
okay.
911.
Yes, you can call 911. You can. Yeah. Jamil said, uh, this is a difficult conversation, but a necessary one. If you don't want your first quest or direct to be, are you thinking about killing yourself? You can ask them this way. Do you feel like you can keep yourself safe? If they say no, then ask, what are you thinking? How are you thinking about harming yourself? So, asking those questions directly. Okay, so Chastity wants to know any coping strategies for those who have lost loved ones to die by suicide.
Absolutely. I would strongly encourage them to connect with a support group
Mhm.
that's been proven to be very, very helpful. Um, for grief and loss, I would recommend Big Bend Hospice. If you're in Leon area, Lee's Place, it's a really good source as well
Okay.
for grief and loss counseling. So reaching out to a support group, reaching out if you are active in a church or a religious organization, reaching out to um, your fellow sisters and brothers, uh, taking time for yourself, seeking out therapy and counseling individually. That's a good source, and finding ways that removing the guilt, helping someone to help you if they're experiencing that,
Mhm.
having a clinician to help them process the guilt that comes with um, being a survivor of suicide
Mhm.
um, is really a huge component of processing it and moving through that. So I would strongly encourage that, and trying not, as hard as it is, trying not to isolate yourself, surrounding
Mhm.
yourself with people that can love on you and support you. However, a huge part of that coping would be processing the guilt that comes along with it and knowing that it's not your fault.
Absolutely. So Dr. Singleton, she also is a FAMU instructor. She said, what advice do you have for individuals who think that acknowledging mental health challenges is showing weakness or believe that it means that you're crazy?
My advice would be for us, first of all, to change our language, to
Mm-hmm.
remove that stigma when it comes to mental health illnesses and suicide. And so I was reflecting back when I was preparing for this as a young person, if I could recall having conversations about mental illnesses and suicide, and I couldn't remember
Mm-hmm.
anything. All I knew, because I live in Gaston County, that the Florida State Hospital was what they called the crazy house, and that's where people would go. But I didn't really understand like the depth and
Mm-hmm.
severity of it. So we want to remove any negative language and stigmatizing language associated with mental illness. It's not okay to use that type of language, and we need to let people know that mental health illnesses is just as important as physical illnesses, and we should take it as seriously. And we have to,
Absolutely.
hold each other accountable. When we learn better, we do better. And so we should, hold our loved ones accountable and those that are in our circles. And when we hear them saying certain things, be okay with, educating them a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So Solomon wrote something around the church. It's a little lengthy, but I think, if we could just address it a little bit. He said, "Believe it or not, I'm a little surprised that I don't see nor hear enough from churches or within church when it comes to some form of prevention. You tend to see the most broken people either attending church or randomly visiting one. During my lifetime, being raised by a single mother that kept me in church, i.e., Baptist, non denominational, Pentecostal, I can't recall many, if any of them, that had some form of suicide intervention programs and or individual counseling outside of it. I think his last word was marriage. So I think, and you can chime in on this as well, Kiki. I think suicide in particular is really still very taboo.
Absolutely. It is.
And like you said, you talk about the guilt, shame. I think even amongst non-church goers, because if you think about like I was talking about law enforcement and that sort of thing, you rarely hear about that happening, but it does happen pretty frequently.
Absolutely. And back to what Solomon shared, I totally get it. I am a PK. So I was raised in the church, and we don't have those conversations. You just pray
Mhm.
about it, you put it on the altar, and you keep it moving,
And
right?
keep it
And
moving.
so, but times are changing, and I have seen some churches become more open to realizing that it's going to take a little more than prayer and fasting, but sometimes we need to embrace clinical support as well. And we are seeing more churches now becoming more open to that approach, and I'm hoping that we'll see even more sooner than later. But he's absolutely right. You didn't hear you didn't hear about it. You didn't see any programs to address those issues, but it's definitely needed.
And I'm gonna take it a step further. I I just don't recall, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I lived in a bubble of sorts, but down in Miami, I just don't remember black people doing that.
I'm glad you said that.
I'm not
you
trying
know
to be funny,
that's
but I just
true.
don't.
When I was growing up, you would hear people say, "Black people don't do that. That's a white person thing." White people do that. And if you hear somebody say, "Oh, such and such died by suicide," the first thing they'll say, "Oh, it must be a white person."
Hmm.
That's just, you didn't hear about that. And if it did happen, you know, they said, the family said the person died by something else. They never really said
Hmm.
it was by suicide. That's just the
Right,
truth.
right, right. All right. Well, I just wanted to put it out there. All right. Vanessa Gibson said, "What about those that have those silent thoughts but shows no sign, and on the outside show their life is good, but when alone, the thoughts are there."
Okay. So although those aren't external signs, they're internal signs. So
Mhm.
paying attention to the thoughts that you're having, those feelings and emotions. So we talked about earlier the different warning signs and how they can be categorized in different ways. So yes, a lot of people, especially within our culture, we don't have
Mhm.
time to be, depressed and sad and moping. We got to get up and go to work. And so depression can look differently. You have some functioning people that are depressed.
Mhm.
They get up and go to work every day. They put on a smile, but inwardly they're torn to pieces. They just
Mhm.
wish somebody would see them, but society has told us we don't have time for that. And a
Absolutely.
lot of time within our homes, growing up, people don't create safe space for people to feel and be emotional, and be vulnerable. And even young, like growing up, I heard not necessarily my family, but people telling even our boys, what you crying for? Don't cry, boys. Don't cry. Suck it up. And so
Mhm.
I'm very intentional being a mother of two Black young kings, making
Mhm.
them know that it's okay to feel and to have emotions, and creating safe spaces for them to come to me and have those conversations. But yes, a lot of people are suffering in silence when
Mhm.
it comes to the struggles that they're facing. And I just strongly encourage them to, find the strength and the courage to reach out, because help is
Absolutely.
available.
Absolutely. So there are a couple of comments about the church. Nicole said you may not have a safe space within the church. So much hurt, shame may prevent a person from ever asking for prayer. Lynette said the church is for spiritual wellness. One's mental health can be improved, but if they are not equipped to handle mental health, folks need to be referred to the professionals.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
And so what I was saying regarding the church offering those services
Mhm.
is maybe bringing people in,
Yes.
external sources in, if they don't have anyone on staff that's clinically trained to address it. We don't want,
Mhm.
just your lay member or your evangelist that's not clinically trained
Right.
to try to address these issues, because that's beyond their scope of expertise. But if you do
Mhm.
have people within your congregation that can provide these services, reaching out to them and then bringing in external resources, or connecting your um, members to these resources in the community. But that was a great point.
Mhm. Mhm. All right, we got a couple of more comments. Let's see. Tanya said Solomon is right. Structured programs don't exist in churches. There should be a way to work through these things with professionals and support groups. It occurs in black families. My father, an educator, committed suicide. He was a principal. He suffered in silence. Oh wow. Tanya, thanks. Sorry for your loss, and thank you for
Yes.
being transparent and sharing. But I think you know I think some churches offer some of that. In fact, I'm trying to think who I had on here. Somebody said it was a white church, but they had a whole mental health component within the church, like almost like a ministry, I guess. And
Hmm.
so, I think with the talk about mental health and wellness, we probably will see more of that within um, organized religion, if you will. So,
I'm very hopeful.
hmm
With this pandemic, um, it's opened up a lot more resources for the community, and
hmm
people are seeing how serious mental health illnesses are, and it's more light has been shown upon it. So hopefully, we'll see more services, not
mm,
only within the church, but within our community, accessible services, quality
mm.
services within our
Right,
communities.
right, right, right. So I have someone who texts me because she doesn't know how to comment. She said
Okay.
she read some research that Black people moved up the class ladder when they adopted more white middle class behaviors. So, and there may be some validity to that. You kind of mimic what you see in terms of, that being a way out of all of life's stressors. My thoughts are like the darkness that you must see in order to go to the place of, you know, taking your own life.
Right.
Um,
Yes. Can you imagine like what a person have to be experiencing, the turmoil they're experiencing,
mhm.
and to even consider that? And,
Right, right,
and
right, right.
sometimes it's just situational, like in that moment.
Mhm,
I can share and be transparent. When I was 17, I mentioned earlier, I had a stillborn. I
mhm,
didn't have any prior diagnosis with mental illnesses, or nor was I using substances, but there was a brief moment in time after that traumatic experience that I thought, this is just unbearable. This is too much for me. And
mhm,
I felt like I would be better off dead. And
mm,
it was in that moment my mom actually called me, and then after talking with her, I didn't feel that way anymore. So
mm.
we have to not be so quick to make permanent decisions in temporary situations.
Absolutely. Tia said awareness is everything. We have to develop the mindset to be prepared when we ask someone, how are they doing today? We never know what we will get.
Absolutely.
Very well said. Very well said. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you wish to share with the viewers?
Well, first of all, I would like all of us to take a deep breath, because
Okay. Yes, I need it.
that's been
Woo.
some deep loaded conversation.
Hmm. It is. It is. It is. It is.
And one thing I can't stress enough is, just letting people know that you matter. You
Mhm.
are not alone. It's okay to not be okay. Reach out for support when you're not feeling like yourself for an extended amount of time, or if you
Mhm.
notice your loved ones, pay attention to what's going on with them. Pay attention to some of those warning signs we talked about, and reach out for help, because help is available. We don't want any anyone to lose their lives by
Mhm.
suicide. You know,
Yes,
reach out and get that support.
absolutely. Yolanda had a comment that I think is worth putting up, and I also have a question for the viewers after I read it. But it says normalizing clinical assistance for mental health in the church will assist us as African Americans opening up to the thought of counseling and pharmaceutical assistance. I remember Dr. Isaiah Lee, who was my
Oh,
doctor
I
before,
loved him.
yes, before he retired, came to our church and spoke on depression. One of the people he referenced was the late great Whitney Houston. So I have a question for the viewers. If your church partnered with clinicians of color to come to the church and offer counseling services, would you take advantage of that? Would
That's a
you
good
take advantage of
question.
that? If you would, let me know. Give me the church finger or something in the comments so I know. Would you take advantage of that, or would you be too ashamed? Would you be embarrassed because you think your church members might, you know, be talking about you? All right, so they chiming in.
Let's see what the comments say.
Definitely, yes, absolutely, yes. Okay,
Awesome.
all right. Hey, so that might be one of my recommendations in my current position as a mental health navigator.
Sounds good.
So getting the churches to partner with clinicians to come into the church and offer counseling services.
Or being able to refer them out, having that smooth transition, linking
Hmm.
them to care.
Okay.
She say front row, front row.
Front row. All right, Janae.
Ah,
Okay. Cool.
yes, we're making great strides in removing that
Good.
stigma.
Good. Good. Okay. Good. Thank y'all for chiming in. I appreciate that. I definitely.
That's my church member, my
Oh,
aunt
that's your church
Nancy.
member. Okay. Hey, sister. All right. Good deal. Well, this has been very, very helpful and such a timely conversation. So I got to thank you, Miss Keke Lee.
Thank you for having me. I
Hmm.
appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Yes. Thank you,
Oh, thank you, Sister Sarah.
Sister Sarah. Okay. Good deal. Oh, Janae put in the Google Doc form to sign your child up for weekly mental health check-ins. I think she said every Tuesday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Every Tuesday, Girls to Divas. So, all right. So everybody's chiming in saying thank you, thank you,
Oh,
thank you. We appreciate
my
it.
pleasure. Thank you all for joining.
Yes, 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 yes. So how can folks connect with you, Keke Lee?
Okay, I am on Facebook, Keke Lee Counseling and Consulting. You can also check out my website. It's Keke, Keke, at KekeLeeCC.com. I can be reached at 850-270-7585.
All right. Say the website one more time.
Keke, that's Keke at KekeLeecc.com.
You see, that's the part I was missing. Oh, look at this. You know what? You got some people on here tonight. Look at them.
Yes, I see my family.
Nice, 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 nice. And are you taking new clients?
I have space for about 2 more clients because
Listen,
I'm really good about having, boundaries set
okay.
and balance
So
in
listen,
life.
she's licensed in Florida. She can only take
Yes,
about 2 more of you. So if you're
ages
interested, you
6 to
better.
24.
What's the ages?
6 to 24.
6 to 24. So she takes youth and young adults. All right, 6 to 24, and you're right there in Gadsden County, right?
Yes, however, my private practice is solely teletherapy.
Okay, so you don't even have to be. You don't even have
Right.
to go to the office. You could do it. You do it on telehealth.
That's right.
Look, my sister said, "Dang, I'm out of range." But you in Florida. You in Florida, and do you do insurance or
Only private pay.
okay, private pay? All right, good.
Yes, but it's very affordable. That's
Okay,
one thing I wanted to do to make sure it was affordable.
nice, 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 nice. Well, again, we appreciate. Let me come back on here with you. We appreciate your time.
Yes, don't leave me alone.
We appreciate your time and your knowledge and expertise and what you're doing with the youth, especially. So hopefully, this is again benefited you all, and you can take something with you to share with others. Please, 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 please share this broadcast. You know, this will be you can watch it in the replay. So it'll be housed on Facebook, on YouTube, and as well as on Greater Works Network. Follow us, like our content. That's how you support us. Subscribe to the Conversations with Nicole YouTube channel and download the Greater Works Network app or add us as a channel on Roku so that we can continue doing this type of programming. All right. All right. Well, y'all, we'll see you Wednesday. Wednesday is Wellness Wednesday, and we have Ashley Hayden. I'm probably mispronouncing her name, but we're going to be talking about intergenerational trauma as it relates to
It's a
Black
good
women. She's
topic.
actually working on her PhD. So another heavy topic, but I think it's going to be great. So
Heavy
yes,
but
yes,
necessary.
quite necessary. Okay, Lynette. What did Lynette? Hold on. She put something in the chat. She said, I think this is an article. Bryce. Yeah, I think it's an article. So y'all check it out. Like, communicate with each other in the comments. Yeah. All right. We'll see y'all next time. Thank you for
All right.
tuning
Good
in.
night.
Good night.